Well, we getting down into the book of Genesis now, actually past the halfway mark, since we're all the way over to chapter 29 now. Finished up chapter 28 last week, and we came down to chapter 29, and now it's fixing to be payback time for Jacob. And all of his swindlings that he did with his brother Esau, it's fixing to be payback time. So, Genesis chapter 29, if you have your notes there, I think it's starting on about page 189, getting on up there. Verse 1, it says, Then Jacob went on his journey. This is after he had the Jacob's ladder and the things that he saw last week. Then went on his journey from where he was at with Rebekah up to Laban's house, and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of the well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the sheep, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in its place. And Jacob said unto to them, My brethren, whence be ye? And they said, Of Haran are we. He said unto them, Do ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. Now, a lot of people, when they read the lineage of Christ and everything else, it says it was a son and was a son and was a son and all those things. Well, Laban is not the son of Nahor. He's a grandson. Okay? So basically you see here that the Bible uses son interchangeably sometimes with grandson. So recognize that when you're reading all these lineage, and a lot of people start saying, well, there's contradiction here. Well, not the way the Bible reads in a lot of those situations. So that was just a little throwback to let you understand that the Bible reads those kind of things. And they said, We know him. And they know Laban. And he said unto them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And behold, Rachel, his daughter, cometh with the sheep. And he said, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them. And they said, We cannot until all the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth, then we water the sheep. So we see here that Jacob gets at a well, very similar to Eliezer. I mean, basically he's going back to the same area that Abraham sent Eliezer to find Rebekah, his mother, to be a wife to Isaac. And so they, and the thing about it is, think about it from this standpoint. Remember the Tower of Babel? What happened at the Tower of Babel? All the languages got confused. They're talking and communicating. Even though Jacob has been way over here in the land of Canaan for all these years, and Laban and him has been over here, they never removed from the language that they learned when they left Ur the Chaldees. Okay? So but they also was able to communicate with the folks from Canaan. So they learned that language too. So Jacob is actually learning both languages to be able to talk. Now, do we know that they had different languages? Not really, but my gut feeling is they were. When you get that far away, there's a lot of, just like Tennessee versus New York. We're not that far away, but we speak different language. And they also have a certain sequence of how they do their sheep and their cattle. The sheep is going to get watered first, and then the cattle. Okay? And so they have to wait until they all get together. Then down in verse 9, there's not a whole lot more to say about that part. And while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. And it came to pass, sorry, I lost my spot. And it came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother. And of course, he's not his father's brother. He's his father's nephew. Okay? Jacob is not his father's brother. That's his nephew. Because Rebekah is Laban's sister. So he's a nephew. So that's the reason why I said when you start reading some of these things, the Bible refers to people a little bit different than what we have in our minds sometimes. But Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his father's son, his sister's son, then he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said unto him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him a space of a month. So here we have Jacob seeing Rachel. And the thing about it is that you can sort of think about it from the standpoint of there's probably a lot of resemblance between Rebekah and Rachel. Okay? And so he sees her, and it's love at first sight. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but it's love at first sight. And Rachel is probably very similar to his mother. And Jacob provides the background of what's going on and everything else about why he's there. And, of course, Laban is very eager because Laban likes the money. Remember what happened when Eliezer went over? Laban was all about, all these jewels and all this other stuff that was bestowed upon him. So Laban is ready to roll. Says, come on in and stay with us a while. And so he stays there about a month. And then comes Laban's proposal. Okay? And all this is going on. And so we have here in verse 15, after he stays there for about a month, Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, shouldst thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? So in other words, you're here, you're helping me out, surely I need to pay you something for it, okay? I need to give you something for it. And Laban, and of course after a month, he's probably already seen the liking of Jacob to his daughter Rachel, okay? So watch what happens. And Laban said unto Jacob, what shall thy wages be? And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed. In other words, she wasn't the knockout that Rachel was, okay? But Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. So Rachel was the knockout. Now, how old is Jacob here? No, that's his dad. Isaac was 137 when he blessed him. So Jacob is 60 years younger. So he's about 77 years old. He's no youngster. Okay? He's not a younger one here. So he's anxious to try to find that wife and get busy. And notice it says, and Laban had 2 daughters, and the younger was Rachel. And Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. I doubt any of us men would serve anybody for 7 years for a woman. Much less offer it free will. We don't have that much patience. But notice what refers here. Jacob offers him 7 years of service for Rachel. Okay? But notice the response. And Laban said, "It is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me." Did he ever say, "I agree"? No, he never did he? But Jacob thought that's what he said. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. They seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had to her. Oh, well. Okay. Now, keep reading. We'll come back and comment on it. And Jacob said unto Laban, "Give me my wife," after he served 7 years. So now he's 84 years old, right? "For my days are fulfilled that I may go in unto her." And Laban still hadn't said anything yet. "Gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his maiden for an handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and he said to Laban, "What is this that thou hast done to me?" Can you imagine? "Did not I serve thee with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then thou hast beguiled me?" And can you imagine what happened when Laban responded to this? And Laban said, "It must not be so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn." Jacob did all that deception to the firstborn. So now, we don't do that here to the firstborn. Can you imagine the conviction that fell on him at that point? Okay? So, notice what happens. Verse 27. "Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service. For thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years." And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. Now, it's not very clear here that he actually served another 7 years before he got Rachel. If you read it, he may have given Rachel, but he still had to serve 7 more years. So it's not very clear which way it was. But what I want to try to show you here is that Laban, basically the deception that Jacob did to Esau, now it is basically being come right back to him. That's right. He's reaping what he sowed. And of course, Laban, he don't care. He's got 14 years of service for his 2 daughters. And plus he got rid of Leah, which was going to be hard to get rid of from what I could tell. So he basically got a bargain both ways. And the thing about it is that notice after verse 26, it says, "Before the firstborn," Laban says, "Fulfill her week, and we will give thee also for the service that thou wilt serve thee yet another 7 years." And Jacob did so. He didn't complain after that. He didn't complain after that firstborn was mentioned. Okay? And the thing about it is, how many have ever heard the prophecy of Daniel chapter 9? 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. All right. How do you get the interpretation of 70 weeks? Right here. Okay. Notice the week is 7 years. Up there in verse 20, and Jacob served 7 years, but then down here in verse 27, fulfill her week, a week of years. That's how you get that prophecy understood, that it's 70 weeks of years. 490 years rather than 7 weeks. Okay? And so we basically see that Laban is going to deceive him and basically got 7 more years. And can you imagine working 14 years for a wife?
No. But back up there in verse 20, are we certain that a man wrote that verse?
Moses.
And we're sure he wrote it, not Leah or Rahab. I'm just saying.
He must have been head over heels. But the other thing about it is, other than, there's only one other engagement longer than this one in the Bible. Anybody know which engagement's longer than 14 years? That's exactly right. 2,000 years is our engagement to Christ, the church. So anyway, and then let's, your notes there has the verse there down in on page 192 for Daniel 9:24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in the everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy. So when you look at that, and of course a little bit later it says 62 and 7 weeks, which is 69 of those weeks, okay, which is 483 years from the time that the prophecy was to go rebuild Jerusalem back in Nehemiah's days is basically, and when you start down and think about it, a lot of times people will put that up until Christ's birth. No, it's until his crucifixion, until he be cut off. So at 69 weeks, 483 years, was until, from the time of going forth to rebuild the temple all the way down to Christ's crucifixion. All right? And then that last week is going to be the last week, which is the tribulation period coming up during the tribulation period after we're called out and basically going home to be the bride of Christ and be a part of that marriage supper of the Lamb. And the thing about it is that, and you know, when I was making these notes, I was sitting there and I didn't have my Bible right next to me at this time. I was actually, using some electronic information and all that kind of stuff. And when I read the week, I put that information in there. And I go open my Bible, guess what? It has the 7 years underlined. And then down here in verse 27, it says, fulfill her week, blocked out. It says Daniel 9, week of years. So, I mean, that is the key to Daniel's 70 weeks. A lot of people always miss that from the standpoint of the prophecy in the way that it's set up, because a lot of people think it's just till the time of Christ. But one of the things that you start looking at it is that, remember, Christ's uncle, well, basically uncle versus Mary's sister. I forget his name. The one that actually saw him when he was struck blind because he didn't believe. Who was it? And no, it was the prophet, Mary's sister's husband. I forget his name. But basically, he's the one that knew that it was time for Christ based on the Daniel's prophecy. But of course, it was still another 30 years. He knew it was about that time. And then when he saw him, he knew it was the Christ, the coming. And that's when basically he got his sight back. So all that, the book of Daniel on that 70 weeks, that was a prophecy that basically, when you sit down and think about it, Israel should have saw it all the way through, because it was so specific in everything that was going on. But here we see that the 70 weeks, and Jacob ends up 14 years overall, so he's all the way up to about 94 by the time all these things get transpired. He's getting on up there in age, just like Abraham was. But we don't see an age of Rachel and Leah, but they're probably not that young as well. But then in verse 31, we get down to reading, and what you have in your notes, one of the things I decided to do, I went ahead and put a table in there of all the, and let me tell you, Jacob's trouble is just starting. Jacob's trouble is just starting. Zacharias, I think, is it not? I think wasn't it Zacharias? Yeah, Zacharias was basically Mary's sister's husband, right? Yeah, he's struck blind because he didn't believe the prophets that it was Christ. But then after he saw him, basically, yeah, he was. But yeah, it's Zacharias is who it was. And then, so chapter 29 and verse 31, I've got you a table here, and after each section, you're going to see the sons and the offspring of each one of Jacob's mates. You might as well call it that way, but basically his wives and his their handmaids, and who each one came from. So you can sort of just start seeing it. In verse 31, it says, and when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, so Jacob just didn't like Leah. He loved Rachel and didn't care for Leah at all. He got basically hoodwinked, and he was not good shape for her. So what happened is that Lord saw that Leah was hated. He opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. So Rachel's womb was closed up. Leah's opened up. All right? And Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. Not yet. But in her mind, that was the key. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, and the Lord heard that she was hated, he hath therefore given me this son, and she called his name Simeon. So you got two of them now. All right? And she conceived again. So here's number 3. So this is at least 3 years into this marriage, right, pretty close to it. And bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. Well, I think he was joined to her before that, from the standpoint of just common sense. But basically, she's trying to say, the more sons I give, the more he's going to like me and be with me, because he still loved Rachel. But he said, and she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, now I praise the Lord. It's no more necessarily about him. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. So basically 4 sons she's got. And the thing about it is that we don't have the age brackets, but basically it's just starting. The experience that he's fixing to have is just now starting. Notice what happens here. And when Rachel, chapter 30, Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children. Oh, here comes the jealousy. Can you imagine? I know the women ain't going to be able to say this, but basically a man with 2 wives and 2 handmaids, and basically jealous between them. Man, you can talk about, that's not a comfortable place to live in. Notice what happens. When Rachel saw that, she bare Jacob no children. Rachel envied her sister and said, Even though she was the one that loved, she envied her sister and said unto Jacob, give me children or else I die. I'm going to commit suicide if you don't give me a child. So she was whining. Okay? Jacob's anger. Oh, man, he got mad now because he didn't want to have to put up with this back and forth. Kindled against Rachel. And he said, am I in God's stead? Who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? In other words, I have nothing to do with whether or not you can have a child or not. It's not. But the thing about it is, he was having children with Leah. But Rachel was still one of those, maybe it's not just me. And she said, well, behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. All right, so now here's the third one coming up. All right. And she gave him Bilhah her handmaid to wife. And Jacob went in unto her, and Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. So now Rachel's starting to figure out it is her. All right. Well, at that point in time, the handmaids were considered their property, basically, for the most part. And almost similar to slaves, but not necessarily the same word as slaves, but it's basically property. And so basically, if I give you her, then that baby that comes out is still mine. So basically, it was still her child. Do what? Yeah. Same situation with Sarah and Hagar, with Ishmael and Isaac. Same situation. And so the thing about it is, right. Yeah. Right. Yep. So, and so she gave Bilhah, and Bilhah conceived, and she bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God hath judged me. Now she realizes it's her. God's judged her because of her jealousy as well. All right? And the fact that Jacob loved her more than Leah, so basically she's starting to get a feel for what's going on. And hath also heard my voice, all right, and hath given me a son, therefore called she his name Dan. Now Dan, when we get down, like we said when we was over in Revelation, Dan was one of the ones left out of the 144,000 because basically one of the tribes then, because he went up and joined himself to idols. No different than one of the others. But Dan, basically, when you start looking back, he was the first priest, okay, in the Bible that basically, if you look over at his history back over in the Judges or Kings, or I think it was one of those. So here we have that. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again and bare Jacob a son. So Jacob's getting busy here. You got Leah, he's got Rachel, he's got Bilhah. There's one more to go. All right. So she's got two sons now. And you got Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, and here you have Naphtali. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, back and forth. But when Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. So here we go again. So here comes number 4 into the picture. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son, and Leah said, a troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. And basically, so we're starting to get a whole lot of children going on here. And note that Jacob's no young person at this point. Can you imagine having warring wives against each other and all this and having to deal with that? I mean, he's probably getting to where, man, I even want to go home. Do what? Yeah, these are going to be the 12 tribes, right? That's right. Yep. And just like Ishmael also had 12. No different. Ishmael also had 12 sons that became 12 kings. So now you got the 12 tribes of Israel just as well. And so that's where they're all coming from. And they're all considered Jacob's part, even though they're coming from their handmaids. And Zilpah's, Leah's maid, bare a second son, and Leah said, "Happy am I, for daughters will call me blessed." And she called his name Asher. So you have Gad and Asher. So now Leah has technically 6, and Rachel still just has 2. All right? So Reuben so now we have that situation, and basically you have Reuben, which is probably, he's the oldest, right? And so now you have 8 kids, and my gut feeling is these are probably coming one right after another, if not some overlapping when you consider different women, all right? So Reuben is not that old, all right? But Leah has been barren, right? She's barren now. She's not having any more kids, so she gives her handmaid over to Jacob for that. But now Reuben went into the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them into his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes." Now, why would she do that? You know what a mandrake is? It's actually something like a root, okay, type plant, all right? And from this standpoint, it's an aphrodisiac, okay? But it's also known to help infertility at that point. So that's the reason why Rachel said, "I need one of those." Okay? So now you understand that reasoning why she's asking for that. All right? And it backfires. Okay? She says, "Give me one of those mandrakes. I need that. Maybe it'll open my womb." That's her mindset. Okay? All right? So she goes that, and notice what happens. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes." And of course, Leah knows what they're there for too. And she's barren, right? And she said unto her, "Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband?" In other words, he favors you already. All right? "And wouldst thou take away my son's mandrakes also?" And Rachel said, notice what she says, "Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes." Let's bargain. I'll let you lay with him tonight, and I'll take some of the mandrakes. Oh, can you imagine this household? Oh, I told you, it gets when you really sit down and look at what's going on, it's soap opera 101. Probably worse. But Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, Leah's going out and says, "Oh, you're going to lay with me tonight. I've hired you tonight. Thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes." Can you imagine? I bargained with Rachel so that you would lay with me tonight because she wants some of my mandrakes, so I'm paid for that, so you can lay with me tonight. Oh, man. Let's see. We'll go ahead and try to finish up this section right here before we finish for today. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob his son. So Rachel's deal backfired. So it opened up Leah again. Now she's having a fifth son. All right. So now she's fixing to have Issachar, I guess is how you pronounce it. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire. In other words, it worked, because I've given my maiden to my husband, and she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bare Jacob the sixth son. So here's another one. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. Notice she didn't count Zilpah's kids for her. She just said her 6 sons, which she's had. And afterwards she bare a daughter and called her name Dinah. So we can see that basically, and it came to pass when Rachel had and God remembered Rachel. Finally, God hearkened to her and opened her womb, and she conceived and bare a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. And so she added up having that. And of course, that's going to end up basically where we're going to stop at this point. But basically, the race was on between those two, and basically it was like a soap opera. And it just keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So believe you me, I don't think I would want to have been in Jacob's shoes. Not at all. So anybody got anything they want to bring up before we dismiss for this morning? That's right. And use it for his glory. That's right. And he always does. Yep.
But God had to do that. That's the way God had it set up. Now, who knows the mind of God?
That's right. Nobody. Not us. Yep. All in his providence. Brother Scott, would you dismiss us in word of prayer?